And we are back. Welcome to my predictions for Premier League Game Week 14. Apologies if this one's gone up a little bit later than usual. My PC literally crashed the first time round I tried to record this. So now we have to do it all over again. It was a pretty good week for me in terms of Europa League predictions and Europa Conference League predictions last night, other than the two Turkish teams getting absolutely hammered for 5 goals and 6 goals respectively. It's a shame the third Turkish club wasn't hit for 5 or 6 on Wednesday night, but we'll get to Manchester United shortly. If you haven't done so already, please do consider dropping a like on this video if you enjoy these series, and subscribe to the channel as well. We do predictions almost every single day at the moment, and of course I will have my post-match reaction to the Newcastle-Manchester United game for you tomorrow. Let's get into all of the action in Premier League Game Week 14, and we start off with the 3 o'clock kickoffs because the early game has been moved to 8 p.m. tomorrow night. So we start off with Arsenal against Wolves, and I'll be honest with you, I think this is going to be quite a tight game. Arsenal, of course, were 6-0 winners against Lens earlier this week. Wolves were once again done over by VAR on the Monday Night Football. So Gary O'Neill seems to set his teams up very, very good. He knows what the opposition are going to bring, and he sets up his teams accordingly. And I think this is going to be a really tight game because of it. I've seen some Arsenal fans thinking they're going to win this one 4, 5 or 6-0 as well. I would be absolutely shocked if that's the case. I can definitely see Wolves potentially getting a draw, maybe even sneaking the win out of this one. But I have to think, from what I've seen over the last couple of weeks, Arsenal should be winning this game. So I think the most fair result is to go for a 3-1 win to Arsenal. I very nearly went 2-1, but I think Arsenal are free scoring, and with Odegaard back as well, you'd expect them to get that extra goal. Next up, it is Brentford taking on Luton Town. Now, again, especially after the performance against Crystal Palace, I was very, very tempted to give Luton the result. Not the win, but maybe a draw. But again, I still struggle to see where Luton are going to hurt Brentford. I just think how big they are defensively will stifle Luton's physical attack, and the midfield battle I think is going to be massive. I think Ross Barkley against the likes of Jensen and Norgard in there. Probably the most underrated midfield in the Premier League is Brentford's, and I think they're going to win that midfield battle, and that's where the game is going to be won and lost. I'm going to go for 1-0 to Brentford. It's going to be a very, very tight game. Luton do not lose games by more than 1 goal, so we'll see, but I think it's going to be a 1-0 win for Brentford. The other game at 3 o'clock is going to be Burnley against Sheffield United, the battle of the 2 promoted sides, the huge game at the bottom of the table. Now, Burnley are yet to keep a clean sheet in the Premier League this season, and Sheffield United have been, quite frankly, woeful to watch, and their performances just have not been there so far. I think Burnley will win this game, but given the fact that they still haven't kept a clean sheet, I'm going to go for 2-1. I was going to go for 2-0, but they're a little bit too attack-minded, in my opinion, Burnley, especially given the situation that they're in. So I can definitely see Sheffield United getting at least 1 goal going the other way. As a partial Luton fan, I hope this game ends in a draw, but I think it is going to be Burnley that takes it. The first of the 2 evening games sees Nottingham Forest taking on Everton. Everton, of course, off the back of their defeat to Manchester United after their 10-point deduction. I still think they played relatively well. They obviously had more chances than Manchester United did, despite the fact that they did lose 3-0. Nottingham Forest, of course, lost at home to Brighton last time out, a 10-men Brighton. So their home form has kind of been shattered a little bit. It looked like they weren't anywhere near as good without Amoniyi up front. So with all things considered, I'm very tempted to go for an Everton win, but I just don't quite think that's what's going to happen. So I'm going to go for a 2-2 draw. I think it's going to be a very open game. Both sides are going to be giving it everything because both sides are going to believe they can win this game, and I'm going to go for a 2-2 draw. The final game on Saturday is at St James's Park under the lights. It is Manchester United travelling to Newcastle United, and we're in trouble. I think we're in massive trouble, and I have to word this the right way. On Wednesday night, or Wednesday morning, when I did my predictions for the Galatasaray-Manchester United game, I sat here believing that we would win against Galatasaray, which is why I went for the 2-0 win for Manchester United. For this game, I believe we could beat Newcastle, given the players that we have available to us. However, I don't believe we will beat Newcastle. And given the fact that we lost 3-0 at home to them in the Cup against their reserves when they played 6 fullbacks, I think with a lot of their first teamers available and going to be playing from the start, I really think this could be an absolute hammering. I'm going to go for 4-1 to Newcastle. I think we've seen it enough times over the last couple of seasons that when the going gets tough, this Manchester United team goes hiding. And I can see the same thing happening in this game. Newcastle are a very good side. If Newcastle get the first goal in this game, I think Manchester United will get blown away. So that's why I'm going for 4-1. I hope I'm wrong, but I've seen it happen too many times over the last couple of years to not go for that scoreline. On to Sunday then, and we have 4 games at 2 o'clock before the massive game at 4:30. We start off with Bournemouth and Aston Villa. Aston Villa, of course, in another crowd trouble incident game last night in the Europa League, or the Europa Conference League, should I say. It was a good performance from them. They are still continuing to play well at home. Their away form is still leaving a lot to be desired. They did, of course, get the huge win at Tottenham last week, though. So with all of that said, and even though Bournemouth are playing some very good football at the moment, I think Aston Villa are just that little bit too much for Bournemouth right now. So I'm going to go for a 2-1 win for Aston Villa. I'm also going to go for a 2-1 win for Brighton at Stamford Bridge. Basically, for the same reasons. Chelsea are back in capitulation mode at the moment. They had that great performance against Man City and then got absolutely blown away by Newcastle. Brighton were able to get their first win in the Premier League for a while, last time out against Nottingham Forest, and then backed it up with a great performance against AEK Athens last night, holding off their onslaught before then hitting them and nicking the goal. Chelsea will obviously have Reece James unavailable for this one, and I just think they're so disjointed at the moment, Chelsea, that I think Brighton are going to nick this. Chelsea, of course, are more than capable of winning this game if it all clicks for them, as it has done a couple of times this season. But I think this is a great opportunity for Brighton to capitalise on what's been a bad few weeks for Chelsea. Next up at Anfield, it is Liverpool taking on Fulham. Fulham, of course, off the back of that win against Wolves under very controversial circumstances. But if we look at the overall performance, Fulham are just not playing that well at the moment. Liverpool are playing much better. There is certainly an argument to be made that Liverpool were the better team against Manchester City at the Etihad last week as well. I just think this is going to be a game that Liverpool take relatively comfortably. I'm going to go for 3-0. They've started getting the clean sheets again this season. And given how poorly Fulham tend to play going forward, even though they did cause Liverpool problems last season, I just think Liverpool are going to put this one to bed pretty easily, and I'm going to go for 3-0. The final 2 o'clock game is West Ham and Crystal Palace, and this is really a tough one to call. Crystal Palace, of course, with Michael Olise back, looked a much better side against Luton, but then ended up losing due to some really poor defending from a corner and from a cross from Ogbene. West Ham, on the other hand, again, very mixed form. Unsure if Jarrod Bowen's going to be available. It looks like Eze is also not going to be available for Palace, so both sides are going to be missing key players. I think it's going to be a very physical affair, and I just think I can't split them right now, so I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw. And then finally, back at the Etihad, it is Manchester City taking on Spurs. And again, you have to look at the performances and say City aren't quite at it at the moment. They were poor against Liverpool. They were very poor against Leipzig and were lucky not to lose to Leipzig. It only took them clicking into gear with a few minutes to go that they're able to turn that game round and win it 3-2. And even though Spurs have lost 3 in a row, there are still signs that they can do damage to teams. So I'm definitely going to give Spurs a go. However, if they keep insisting on playing this high line, if they're not going to play Eric Dyer and they're going to continue to play fullbacks at centre-backs, yes, Romero should be available after suspension for this one, but I think City are just going to be so dangerous every time they go forward that this really could be anything. I'm going to go for 4-1 as I have for Newcastle Manchester United, but I honestly think you could see a scoreline like 6-3 or something in this game. I really do. Tottenham can definitely hurt City, but I genuinely think there'll be an opportunity for Manchester City to score every single time they attack Spurs this weekend. It's going to be a crazy game, I hope. I said that about the Liverpool game and it ended up being a quite boring 1-1 draw, but I hope this is going to be a high-octane, entertaining match with both sides giving it far too much going forward. But in the end, I think City will end up taking it. Thank you very much for watching. As always, let me know all of your thoughts down in the comments section. I will be back, like I said, for my post-match reaction to Newcastle Manchester United, where hopefully it will not be depression and misery like it was after the Galatasaray game, but I'm not holding out much hope. I'll see you then.